Welcome to Overtime with Ace, where we talk about relevant construction topics in the industry today. I've got Kyle Thacker back with us again. Kyle, thanks for coming on.
Appreciate you having me back.
So today we're talking about Division One. Now, Division One is our expertise. That's what Ace Consulting does. And so we figured we need to probably talk about what Division One actually is. So Kyle, give us a little bit of a breakdown on what Division One actually is.
Yeah, so it's the very first division in any specification section. It basically outlines the general parameters, general guidelines for any contract that you've been awarded, and that carries on from the federal government on down to state and local contracts, things like that. But what we're talking about here specifically is in the federal space.
Right. So it's general requirements.
Correct.
Which doesn't tell you a whole lot.
Correct. It's very general.
Yeah, it's very general.
Very general.
So within general requirements, what are the main points that it actually covers?
Yeah, so it's designed to basically outline the way in which you perform the contract. So think about things of submittal procedures, scheduling requirements, key personnel requirements. You'll see instances on how to manage anything from change orders, basically the way in which you conduct yourself as the contractor. And then that ties into the later specifications as we get into the technical specs, which are your Division 2 on.
Right. So you've got site logistics, safety, security, closeout, quality control. You mentioned the scheduling. So now that we know, okay, so we've gone through it's general requirements. We've gone through what exactly it covers. Why is it so important?
Well, it goes into that piece of you as the contractor. This is how the contract officer or the government agency that you're working with, this is how they're wanting you to conduct their business. And so, or they want you to conduct business there. So when you're talking about scheduling requirements, when you're talking about, quality control, whatever, they don't just have that in there for some arbitrary reason, right? There's specific factors that they have to check boxes. Think about anything for the way that the contract's funded, a way that the department wants something to be carried out. It's really important because they have to hold those contracts to that standard, number one.
Right.
And two, it helps you kind of set up things as the GC with your subcontractors. It lays the foundation for how everybody conducts themselves with the schedule. How do we treat our baseline? How do we treat our updates, our monthly updates? How do we do our invoicing and things like that? It seems arbitrary, but you have to establish that somewhere.
And two, we specifically within Division One, we focus on key personnel and scheduling and plans, I guess I should say. And those three are arguably the most important at the beginning, really, to set the project up for success from the beginning. You got to have the key personnel, and then you also got to have the schedule and plans correct. And if you don't, then you have delays, you have setbacks. The biggest one that I think probably is payment holds.
Yes.
You could have payment holds other than obviously delays. We don't want delays. Being paid is kind of the name of the game. That's kind of the whole reason why everybody does it.
That's the whole reason. Yeah.
And if Division One's not set up properly, you may not get paid until it is set up properly. So not only are you not going to get paid, but then you're also going to get hit with delays there as well. The big question, I think, especially going into the federal space, Division One's a little different going from commercial to federal, of who exactly is responsible for what in regards to Division One. So talk a little bit about that.
Well, at any time a contractor bids on something, they are given that information up front. So if you've been awarded a project, your company should have, in theory, went ahead and reviewed those initial requirements, and it will spell out who is responsible for, who's responsible for which piece. Yeah. And that's something I hear a lot is it's like, well, they somebody might say, well, this is the government's, it's on them to provide the milestone schedule, or it's like,
most definitely not.
Most definitely not,
not.
So I mean, so the quality control plan, your first 30 days, first 90 days, whatever it is, you have to communicate to the government, hey, these are my definable features of work, right? I have to outline that and spell out those DFOWs and make sure that they translate from quality control to schedule to safety, so on and so forth. So, I mean, you say who's responsible for what. It's really the general contractor's responsibility to orchestrate that in a way that's clear, concise, manageable, and scalable, which is where we come in. Is because, project managers, everybody, they've got a lot going on. They've got, they're trying to do 1,000 other things.
They
at
can't
once.
do everything.
They can't do everything. And so they say, hey, we need we need an easy button solution. Yeah. How can we actually set this up? And that's where that dialogue comes in between us and the GC. Is it's like, yes, the government is responsible for, providing feedback and some guidelines, things like that. But at the end of the day, you as the GC, you're responsible to set up all of those, you just outlined there, all of those key details. You can't get it.
Right.
You might have to coordinate with some subcontractors, but for the most part, that's on you.
And I think the interesting thing about what we do and how we kind of fit into a lot of this is with Division One is it's kind of full circle, because it's key personnel, it's schedules, but then also the key personnel are the ones that are mostly responsible for all of the other aspects within Division One. So, you're talking about your quality control system, and then your safety program, right? So your key personnel, your quality control manager and site safety officer, those are the guys that are going to be, guys or gals that are going to be running that.
Absolutely.
So, and I think that also brings up a good point of why it's so important. The key personnel aspect of it is so important, because if you don't have a quality control manager that knows what they're doing, you don't have a site safety officer who knows what they're doing, you're going to get behind not only on the paperwork side of it, but also on the actual on-site, specifically quality control wise. If you're talking about checks, you're talking about the preparatory, initial, and follow-up, all of that stuff, getting that stuff laid out ahead of time is just so important there, that if you screw that up, it's a big, huge domino effect on down the line.
Absolutely. All the time, effort, and resources that individual could be putting towards actionable items is just going to be spent in bringing them up to speed. And there you go. It's loss of time, loss of money, loss of productivity. That's a real issue.
Okay, so how would somebody stay ahead with Division One?
So our specialty, right? You talk about the way in which we sort of dialogue with contractors. Well, I'm saying what we've found in working with our clients is typically, checklists are of the utmost importance, and it seems very simple and very basic. But again, getting your team the availability for just a regular meeting. I know everybody's got 1,001 things going on, but if you get the key players in a room and you can sit down and formulate a checklist, these are, all of our Division One requirements, everything in the list all the way down. Who has what's our timelines? How does this phase into, the overall milestone schedule, the initial schedule? But that is oftentimes the thing that nobody wants to do, because it's not the pretty thing to do, right? Everybody wants to go drop Connex boxes on site and do clear and grub and do all this stuff. Put something on paper. You're not going to be able to hold your team accountable. You're not going to be able to hold your subcontractors accountable unless you kind of have that checklist. And, there's some other stuff I'm sure that you've seen too, but like I would just say having that checklist to be number one. And then number two would be making sure that once you have outlined that team of your key personnel, that, you have your kickoff meeting with your team, whatever, make sure that those folks are as engaged as early as possible with as many people as possible. Oftentimes we'll see contractors that, I don't want to say they hold stuff too close to the chest, but there's almost an apprehension of, I don't want this person necessarily talking to the floor guy just yet. I don't want them talking. And while I can understand that, there's an element of that you're really hurting yourself, not being forward thinking in starting those conversations. Go ahead and build and invest in those relationships early on. That's two examples, I'm sure.
Sure. Well, and I was going to say communicate. All of that goes back around to communication. So even with the checklist is good. Then once you get that key personnel in place, you got to figure out the communication protocols.
Yeah, who's talking to who?
Who's talking to who? When are they talking to who? Because you don't want people getting their wires crossed there. But then also using the right tools, I think, is super important. So, P6 is what our specialty is for scheduling. That's what the government requires. If you don't even have P6, that's kind of
that's a great point, because all of what I just said there was assuming that okay, we've got our P6 license and we're up and running and everybody's. That's another assumption. That's why it goes back to something like a checklist. Do we have the seats available in our software? Do we have the communication pathway?
And if not, you almost have to, which I mean, to be fair, a lot of our clients, some of them don't have P6. Some of them just have us do all of it for them, but also they don't really have a choice if they don't have the software.
That's correct.
So, obviously, even me selling our services, I wouldn't advise somebody not have the software, because you never know when you may need to get in there and change something or whatnot. But I think that's important. And then lastly, I would just say work with people that know what they're doing. Work with experts, work with ACE. That's our motto. But even if you're not working with ACE, work with somebody that knows what they're doing, because you can just get yourself so sideways within the Division 1 aspect of things. And I was just talking to Joey, our Vice President of Project Controls, just a minute ago about pre-mobilization setup. Another one of our services that we started a couple years ago that's really been super helpful for our clients. All of that's within Division 1, but that pre-mob setup is also super important. You can get so sideways before you ever get boots on the ground that you could be shooting yourself in the foot before you ever even get started.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that encompasses all of Division 1. You can shoot yourself in the foot so easily.
So many ways.
By just not thinking about it, or thinking, just take key personnel, for example. We'll worry about getting this guy submitted here, whatever, we've got a month or something. And then somehow you lose track of something happens, something gets delayed on another project, which then takes your eye off the ball on the one that you're about to start. Next thing you know, it's 2 weeks before you got to be on site and you don't have a quality control manager.
Right.
Like now you're screwed. And now you're going to end up being forced to do something that you don't want to do. Maybe you're putting somebody out there that's not super qualified.
And then how does that play into everybody knows CPARs, or maybe we don't know CPARs, but
CPARs. Tell them what CPARs real quick.
Yeah, so CPARs, that's your CP, that's your contract reporting. Basically, the government gives you a scorecard at the end of a job, and that's a very, very good point. Is your eyeballs are on you from the second that they give you that contract award. They want to see how you function, how you operate, conduct yourself, whatever. Yeah, you might have the construction piece down, but if from notice to proceed up to the time that you actually have boots on the ground and things, if that's a disaster, you're going to hear about it. A lot of people don't want to try and play it away. Again, this goes back to that sort of, you mentioned earlier, whose roles and responsibilities are it.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to, not take that personal level of accountability, but the government is going to look at you.
They're going to hold you to the fire.
They're going to hold you to the fire on that. And, something you said earlier kind of jogged my memory. We do a lot of military projects, a lot of work with a lot of veterans. We're SDV, OSB ourselves. I'm glad you said that, because that was one of the things I was wanting to say was surrounding yourself with people who've been there, veterans. And there's things about veterans in terms of military. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about
veterans of federal contracting, veterans of Division 1.
Exactly. I used to take when somebody would say, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Sure.
I used to say, maybe, whatever. No place is that more relevant, I feel like, than this arena, just because there are 1,001 places. You outline the scenario of you did everything up to the point and then realized you don't have a QC ready to go.
Yeah.
Right. There's 1,001 examples like that of just huge pitfalls that will immediately trip a bad CPARs. It'll trip a bad experience.
Which then you're done.
You're already on your.
You get a bad CPARs ready, you're backpedaling real fast. And a lot of times the thing with the bad because we work with contractors sometimes. We work with clients that sometimes have bad CPARs. Something's happened and we'll help them out. And you look back at what really caused that. A lot of times it goes back to all the way to the beginning. You're talking about the stuff that we just went through. Something within that is ultimately responsible for the reason why they ended up having that bad CPARs.
Exactly. Save yourself the trouble. If somebody else has already learned that lesson, good news for you is you don't have to.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? You don't have to learn through the school of hard knocks, basically. So I would just say that's a real big deal. And even too, the Division 1, it talks about how you close out a project, whatever. Yes. Again, that's another piece.
That's a big one that a lot of people don't. They're not thinking about that at the beginning.
Show up on a CPAR is just the same.
Yep.
So it's over encompassing. I know it's a general spec term, but there's so much in there that don't don't let it just go.
Yeah.
You know, don't treat it like it.
Long story short, your requirements
Respect it.
are a big deal.
Yes.
They're a big deal.
Respect it.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to go through
Yeah.
all this stuff with us.
Yeah.
For everybody watching, thank you guys so much as well. If you have any questions on anything that we talked about today, you can either call us at ACE, or if you want to go to ace-consulting.net, you can go over to the toolbox, go down to the articles archive. There's an article about this in there. You just search in the search bar. We'd be more than happy to assist you guys if you have anything else that you need. Man, work with experts, work with ACE. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.